You're listening to the Grit to Growth podcast. Real talk with real business owners and professionals who built their freedom the hard way and now want more time, money, and impact.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Levi Tesla, and today my guest is Mason Schramm from Yankton, South Dakota. Mason is the owner of the Move Group, where he's made it his mission to turn the often daunting process of buying a home into something that's simple and even delightful. Thanks for joining us today, Mason.
Thanks, Levi. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast with you.
Yeah, so let's get into it. What originally drew you into real estate?
Yeah, I would say a situation like the movie The Money Pit. Old movie. If you haven't, some of these younger kids haven't watched it, I'm sure.
Tom Hanks, right?
Oh yeah, it's a good movie. My wife and I moved across the country right after college. Got married and moved. 22-year-old kids and no idea what we were doing. Bought a house for sale by owner, which is fine. For sale by owner is fine. We ran into a bunch of problems, and we discovered that the owner was not necessarily forthcoming with some of the problems with the house, and an agent would have certainly helped us go through that process a lot better than what we did as novice for sale by owner buyers. And we still own the house. That was 7-8 years ago. We still own the house. We can't get rid of it because of the problems it has. So it's basically a rental right now, and we're managing it from South Dakota, even though it's out in West Virginia. But it was a very expensive education into real estate, and that feeling when you go to your house and you feel terrible because you felt like you made a mistake, and it's a burden financially. That was a terrible feeling. And so when we looked at moving back to South Dakota, both our families are in the Yankton area. We wanted to move back and start a family here. It dawned on me that we can do this better, right? This experience can be a way to help other. At the time, but the demographic was first-time homebuyers. I mean, I'm a little older now. I have a lot less hair, a little grayer, but it resonates with people who are looking at their first house. And so it made it my mission to try to be as helpful and be an advocate and a guide to try to show these buyers that this is a big financial decision. Let's treat it as such and do our due diligence and take our time. And it's kind of spearheaded my decision to be into real estate, the whole experience.
So it sounds kind of like you're doing what you wish you had on that first time home buying process, correct?
Absolutely. So that is absolutely correct. It's experiential learning at its finest. And if I can save a buyer from running into the same situations or similar situations that I did, even at the detriment of a sale, because I have certainly swayed buyers from buying something because of things I saw, but that's doing my job for those clients. I'm there to represent them and their financial stability in the future, purchasing this home, and it has been a powerful way to connect. Now I've obviously expanded into not just first-time home buyers anymore, but that was how I got my start in real estate.
Very good. Can you take us through some of the ways that you are able to kind of eliminate stress from the clients?
Yeah, I think it really starts, and this is not brain science or rocket science, whatever. This is communication. I think a lot of, especially in real estate, people who don't do this very often, we do things all the time. And so it's easy for us as agents to think they're common practice. But again, this is the biggest transaction many people are going to make in their lives, or one of them. And so over communicate, over explain, and make sure that you're trying to be proactive about that. So you're not cutting off, but figuring out the questions people are going to want to know ahead of time. It makes that transaction very smooth. And, what I find is a lot of people and it seems like a lot of now the newer buyers, they're afraid to ask me questions. And so they'll sit and stress out about it until it comes to a point. Right. And so if I can be proactive and try to divulge or find out what they're stressed about early, and how they want to communicate and how they like communicating, that's a big way to make that transaction smooth. And then it's, over time, we've built a lot of good connections with lenders and contractors and people that if there is a problem, we can get someone in there to take care of it.
Yeah.
You're not waiting 6 months for a plumber. We can get someone in there to do it. And so that all of that rolls into trying to alleviate the stress. And then I think the biggest part is, treating people over the transaction, taking care of the customer versus worrying about the paycheck you're going to get at the end. Because the paycheck's going to come. They're going to tell people if you took care of them. And so in business, especially in real estate, your reputation is all you have. And if you show people that you truly care about them and not the transaction, your business is going to flourish. And so that's what I built this model on, those principles. And it's working really well down across in Yankton especially, but we're expanding to other markets. So it's working in those markets as well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point to hit on, because I think a lot of people's perception is, real estate bro, kind of that hustle culture type thing, but you're more highlighting on advocacy and education. Is there any like real specific examples that you can think of, like walking through someone through that process?
Yeah, I mean, it happens every single time I show a property. In some clients are repeat clients, and they've gone through it and they know what they're looking for, and you don't have to go into point out that these windows are probably 20 years old, they're going to need to be replaced, all those things, right? But it starts building that relationship when you're at a property and you're pointing out, not that necessarily things are bad, but that this could be an issue. Let's pay attention to that during the home inspection. I can think of several examples where somebody absolutely loved this house, but they're qualified for a FHA loan. FHA loans or VA loans or South Dakota Rural Development loans all have stricter lending appraisal requirements. And I know that the buyer has no idea. They want to put an offer on a house that there's chipping and paint everywhere on the outside. I know it's going to, the appraiser is typically going to call that out as an issue that needs to be fixed. So if we can get in front of that and make sure the seller is willing to do that before we pay for an appraisal, that helps. If we wait until the appraisal and we find out it has to be done, which we will, and the seller's not willing to do it, it costs my client $500. Right? Those are the things that you try to do to educate and advocate for them, and that comes with experience, honestly. But that's how I try to train the agents in the company, is to point those out and focus on the client.
That's great. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your early days starting the Move Group, and like what kind of that process of,
Sure.
besides the real estate side of things, just business side of things? Tell me some more about that.
So in South Dakota, you have to work as an associate broker, they call it, or a salesperson in other states, for a minimum of 2 years. And then you can get your broker's license. And then in theory, you can have your own company. So I worked for 5 years as an agent, as a sales agent, broker associate with another company, and learned a lot. And, my business was taking off, doing well. And what I kind of discovered through the process is and this really kind of was spearheaded during COVID. I started the Move Group in 2022. So we're on year 3.
Yep.
And what we discovered is, e-signature technology, video walkthroughs, everything changed very quickly. And fortunately, there was a lot of technology out there already, but how people accept that, e-signature now, it's pretty commonplace. People aren't.
Yeah.
So, there are still some people that don't want to do it, and that's fine. And we can go old school and print out and do all this stuff. But, your business practices were changing. And what I was watching from a business sense is that I didn't need a brick and mortar location. Very few people were coming to the office. The agents weren't coming to the office. Clients, we're meeting clients where they were, where they're at their house or at a showing or at a coffee shop or wherever, And so technology was able to replace a lot of what traditionally you had to have in an office setting. And so, at the same time, the work I was doing here was getting noticed by outside companies. Some of the newer technology-based ones like EXP, which is a pretty newer brokerage. Even some of like the Keller Williams of the world, they were noticing and they wanted a location in Yankton. And I interviewed with both of them, several different companies, and kind of learned how they operate. And my wife and I picked what we liked out of that and said, we can do this. I didn't necessarily want to go the franchise route because I think in a place like Yankton, where we've got 20,000 people, give or take, the franchise, you don't need to have the national recognition to do well here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so we rolled in what we liked and didn't like, and went officeless and cut the overhead way down. And then in real estate, in business with real estate, all the people that work for the company are independent contractors. And so it's their own business. They have to hold their license under the banner of a brokerage, but they're their own boss. And so how do you track those agents? And so with technology, yeah, you can track some, but the culture, you can track some, the mission, you can track some. And then, commission splits, right? How agents get paid. And so because we reduced the brokerage side expense way down, I was able to return that to the agents. And so it all kind of streamlined to a process that attracts people that are doing well and want to do well, and they want to take care of the customer, and they get rewarded for it. And
that makes perfect sense to me.
It's all work, right? And it wasn't without its challenges. As you learn as you go, and fortunately, again, technology allows you to pivot really pretty quickly. If I had invested in bought a building and put a bunch of money into it, it's harder to pivot. You have to be more nimble now. That's just how the world works. You have to be nimble, and you have to be agile enough to adapt as needed, and it allows us to do that.
So did you have to do a little bit of a sale job with your wife, getting her on board for this big move, or was
yeah,
what was that like?
I think there's two parts to that. So our initial move back from West Virginia to Yankton, I had gotten a master's in technology management while I was out there, and had a really good IT job at an international oil and gas company. Good benefits, good salary, should be happy, right? We wanted to move. I wanted to move back. She also had a really good job. She really loved. It was a struggle to convince my spouse to say, hey, we're going to leave our good jobs, move back here. You got to find a job, and I'm going to go on a commission job where I don't know how much money we'll ever make.
Yep.
Right. And so it's a big leap. I mean, you have to really be convicted and have the grit, as your podcast says, to be able to work through this, because it's not easy. It's a grind. It is a grind for a long time until real estate. I think right now, 94%, it was really high. 94% of agents quit within 2 years.
Yeah.
Because it's a difficult business, but if you can make it after 2 years, you can start to establish yourself, and then it can be very rewarding as well. But convincing her to move back was one. And then, going out on my own, that one was not as hard because it was kind of always in the works for us. Eventually I was going to do it. The timeline got expedited a little bit. Fortunately we were ready, and that wasn't as big of a deal. I'd already developed a good clientele base. So what has been the bigger struggle then is taking the solar entrepreneurship side of things, solo side, and growing that now into 13 agents, and being managing the personalities and the business, and growing into several markets. And that has been the balance between working in the business and on the business, right? You hear that a lot.
For sure. That's a whole nother skill set from your real estate. Yeah.
Right.
100%.
So now I feel responsibility to help my agents be successful, and I also need to be successful to support my family. And so it's a different challenge, but different grit and growth on that side of things. But it is, I think we're at about 30%, a little over 30% of the market share down here in Yankton. And so great. It's growing, from where we started 2 years ago to now, we're certainly, it's going well.
That's really great. So what's got you excited kind of right now, and then also kind of on the future, maybe a year or so on the road? Is there any big plans there?
Yeah, right now I'm excited at how we're able to adapt to changing markets. If you've been in real estate, if you've been in business long enough, you're going to have swings up and down with how markets ebb and flow. And fortunately, we live in a place where we're not California or Florida or
A little more,
Phoenix.
yeah,
Correct. And we're stable. We don't have the big gains. We don't have the big losses either. Right. And
correct.
so that's a real plus. But, getting to help the agents and our clients understand the market and adapt and still be successful and still pursue their dreams, it really, that's been real rewarding to see, because it's working. It is working. It's harder than it was during COVID. Frankly, that was an unsustainable time period. And you're in Sioux Falls. I mean, you saw it, the
Yeah.
amount of growth when you're giving basically free money
Yep.
at
Yep.
a
All
2%
the
interest
building
rate.
permits have fallen off a
Yep.
cliff from then, right? Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So
That
it's
pendulum swinging back and forth.
absolutely, there had to be a correction. You just don't know when. But if we can get through this, you can get through tough markets. Looking forward, I'm excited about the growth opportunities in Sioux Falls and other similar markets. My goal is to be spread to each MLS area in South Dakota. And so that's, there's basically Watertown, Aberdeen, Huron, Yankton, Mitchell, Sioux Falls, Pierre, and then Rapid has two. And so that would be a long-term goal. And in Sioux Falls, we entered Sioux Falls earlier than I intended because of Scott Stearns, who we talked about off air. He's the first person I brought on in Sioux Falls. Scott's been in real estate for 20 years, and it worked. If somebody is wanting to join you and is a good person, and luckily with technology, I can bring it up pretty quickly. You got to take the opportunity, and so we've expanded out.
I'll second that real quick with
Yeah.
Scott. I'll promote it. He actually officiated my wedding, so I got to give him the shout out too. So
Yeah,
great person to have on your team.
absolutely. And we added two other agents now in Sioux Falls in addition to Scott, and the market is saturated with real estate agents in Sioux Falls. There are more agents there than transactions as of I think July 1, but that's across the country. During COVID, we added over about 1 million agents, and now they're starting to correct. But the challenge is that's the exciting thing. The challenge is that Sioux Falls is such a different market than Yankton. There's a different level of competition. There's a different level of how different brokerages act. There's a wide range, and so instead of us being the only real different one down here, there's unique. There's a lot of, there are certainly brokerages that are doing similar style models in Sioux Falls. They've adapted to the more modern trends than a place like Yankton has already. And so it's a challenge, but it's exciting.
Good. Well, I'm glad things are moving along. I've got one last segment for you here, Mason. It's just a kind of set of rapid fire questions. You don't need to think too hard on them. Give as long or short of answer as you want on them too.
Okay.
All right, let's start. What's the favorite local spot in Yankton?
Ooh, Charlie's for pizza.
What kind of pizza?
They have been making pizza since 1959. Same brick oven. You got to come down and try it sometime. There is a Charlie's in Sioux Falls now too.
Where is that one?
It's over by Stewart Title.
Yes.
Yep. It's in that whatever that strip mall area is.
Yeah. I will for sure give it a shot. All right. Advice you'd give first-time homebuyers.
Be patient and learn as much as you can before you make a decision, because this is a decision that could set you for your future or could really hurt you for your future. So find an advocate and take your time.
What's your dream vacation destination?
Ooh. Oh man. I would love to go travel to Europe sometime. We haven't done it yet. A bunch of countries, and I've got connections there now with different college students we've had stay with us over the years. And so, go to Spain and Denmark and Czech Republic, and it'd be I can't say a certain country, but European vacation with Chevy Chase.
I love it. I'm glad you're a movie buff at heart. So am I. I get in trouble sometimes for bringing up too many movie quotes and stuff, but I love to hear it.
That's funny.
What's one thing people misunderstand about realtors?
that we are only in it for the money. And I think there's reason people feel that way, because there's truth to every rumor, how people feel. There's truth to it.
Mhm.
But we're working hard to change that mentality, and that we really do care about the client first and foremost over any of the monetary gains that we may make off of the client.
That's great. I think that's a good place to wrap her up. So, Mason, what's the best way if people want to learn more about you, want to learn more about the Move Group? Where would you send them to?
Yep. You can go to our website, themovegroup.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. Move with Mason is my handle. That's how I've been doing radio with that. There's a really funny jingle that the radio station came up with that I've been using for Move with Mason for a while. Those are the good places. My cell phone, you can always call me, email me, mason@themovegroup.com. My cell phone's out there. I'm easy to get a hold of. Maybe too easy at times.
Yeah, I understand that. Well, thank you, Mason, for joining, and thank you for everyone for listening in. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Levi.
Know someone with serious grit and a great growth story? Send them our way at grittogrowthpodcast.com/guest.